Well, hello, I'm Malcolm, and today is a special day because this is the first all-digital edition of the Enfield Talking Newspaper. So welcome to edition 2048. With me on the reading team for Thursday the 12th of May 2016 are Elizabeth, Katherin and Patricia. Our editor was Linda, with Jason on the controls and Chris sitting in doing technical stuff. And it's Ian sitting in, I beg your pardon. Who's Chris? I don't know. Nobody I know. Right. And the items we'll be reading are, as you know, the copyright of our local newspapers, the Enfield Gazette and Advertiser and the Enfield Independent. And this week's local stories include developers outline the plans for Trent Park Mansion, scouts on a mind-blowing mission for clean water, the hunt goes on for 17-year-old girls, and parent fury at what they describe as a stupid closure of a preschool. But before we go to the papers, we've got one or two reminders and special announcements. And Elizabeth is going to say something about the AGM.
This is a message from Phillip Dawson, our chairman of the Enfield Talking Newspaper. And he says to you that you're invited to join us for the annual general meeting, which is on Wednesday the 8th of June at 7:30 in the main hall at St Andrew's Parish Centre, Silver Street, Enfield. And he says that this year we have a very special guest speaker, Charles Carroll, a journalist, broadcaster and Radio 4 news reader and announcer. And Charles will be talking to us about his career and giving our readers some tips. So we really hope to see you at the AGM, and we'll read out the full agenda at the end of this recording.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Okay, Patricia, audio description at Tate Britain, what's that about?
This is news of a free audio description tour at Tate Britain, which is giving priority to blind and partially sighted visitors. It's called Out Loud Collection Highlights, and it'll take place on Saturday, the 21st of May, in the galleries at Tate Britain from 11:30 to 12:30. This audio described tour of the Tate Britain collection, described by Louise Fryer of Radio 3, will unlock 500 years of British art. Through detailed descriptions and clear, vivid language, you will explore some of the most loved paintings in the collection. And at this event, sighted companions and guide dogs are welcome. And before the tour starts, there will be tea and cake served in the Claw studio from 10:30. If you've any access needs or enquiries about this event, the assistant curator, Anna Murray, is the person to contact at the Tate. We have an email and a telephone number for her. The email is anna.murray@tate.org.uk. The telephone number is 020 7887 8888. And that event takes place on Saturday, the 21st of May.
Thanks, Patricia. And now Katherine's going to tell us all about a practical workshop on texture and form.
Thank you, Malcolm. This is an audio description workshop for Anwar Shemsa's work, also at the Tate Britain, the Manton Studio. It's on Monday the 20th of June between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. It's a practical workshop for blind and partially sighted participants and will provide the opportunity for them to gain a deeper understanding of Anwar Shemsa's work and his process. Using a range of tactile drawing and printing techniques, the session will explore the themes used by the artist, from his use of calligraphy and architecture to his interest in the relationship between texture and form. This event is open to all abilities. Materials and refreshments will be provided. There are provisions for up to one sighted companion per participant, and of course guide dogs are welcome. There are limited places available, so please get your skates on if you're interested, and again contact Anna Murray, the assistant curator, at anna.murray, Murray, at tate.org.uk or call 0207 887 8888. That's 0207 887 8888 to book your place pretty pronto. If you have any other access needs that you would like to let them know about, also contact those details. That's for the workshop on Monday the 20th of June between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock.
Thanks, Katherin. Now, Katherin and our chairman, Phillip, went to a conference a little while back held for all the talking newspapers in the London area, and they shared various ideas, and one of them was that you might find it useful to know about sunrise and sunset times. So that's something that we're going to try and remember to do every week from now on. So for tomorrow, Friday the 13th of May, sunrise will be at 05:12 a.m. and sunset will be at 20:43 in the evening. And I'm sure you know by now that you have a listener's representative, Diane de Jersey, who will be happy to help you with any problems or concerns you have about your talking newspaper. And you can call Diane on 020 8805 6578. That's 020 8805 6578. And now here's Elizabeth with the first item of news.
The developers behind a plan to transform a former university campus into a luxury housing development have pledged their commitment to preserving the historic character of the site. Berkeley Housing Group bought the former Middlesex University campus in Trent Park last year and are planning on knocking down the outbuildings, which were erected in the 1960s and 70s, and recreating the original grounds around the Mansion House in Trent Park, restoring them to how they looked in the days of Phillip Sassoon, who bought the mansion in 1909. Leading the Advertiser on a tour of the house and grounds, John Murdoch, landscape architect in charge of the project, explained that the team was hoping to recreate the original vista that the Playboy millionaire would have looked on, and will be clearing trees and foliage from the grounds to give future residents of the development a clear view across the lake to the north of the mansion and out over the rest of Trent Park. The planned development's been subject to controversy after Conservative Ward Councillor for Fosters, Jason Charalambos, launched a petition which has since attracted more than 3,000 signatures calling for the developers to retain the house as a museum open to the public due to its significance in World War II, when secret agents bugged the house and listened to conversations among the prisoners of war being held there. Although the developers have pledged to retain a dedicated museum section of the mansion, they have not yet outlined how much of the house will be reserved and transformed into a museum. One aspect of the house that they may be under pressure to preserve is the listening room, deep in the damp and cramped cellars where wires from every room led to, allowing translators and spies to record the intrigues that passed between the Nazi officers. But the house's recent history doesn't begin and end with its role in winning the war. The mansion, which commands views over the rolling acres of Trent Park, was bought by Mr. Sassoon at the turn of the 20th century, and the millionaire was considered a sort of British Gatsby. He was renowned for hosting huge parties, and he lavished time, attention and money on his home, fitting out ballrooms with Chinese silk copies of rare tapestries he saw in the V&A, and installing a heated swimming pool beside his ground floor bedroom. Nice. The swimming pool that was used by the public and students when the university owned the property is another interesting aspect of the development. In a briefing about the developers' plans for the site, Berkeley Homes Managing Director Piers Clanford said that they were committed to restoring the open-air pool, which is a listed building structure. However, he wouldn't be drawn on whether it would be exclusively reserved for the residents of the luxury flats on the site. He said, "We're going to look at options, but there might be some special occasions where everyone could enjoy it," he said. Looking forward to that. if it happens.
An Enfield scout said travelling to Madagascar to help people get access to clean water was mind-blowing. Jack Audrey was one of 3 British scouts to travel to the African island with charity Water Aid to help improve sanitation across the country. 19-year-old Mr. Audrey, with fellow scouts Hannah Kentish and Becky Alexander, will share their experiences with 65,000 scouts from across the UK as part of the A Million Hands campaign. Mr. Audrey, who is currently studying at Reading University, said, "It was great to see how scouts are working to transform lives by educating people about good sanitation and hygiene, as well as advocating for more investment in these basic facilities. It was mind-blowing to see the change. I'm so proud that scouts in the UK were chosen to take action on this important issue. Even by taking small actions, together we really can make a difference in poor communities in Madagascar and across the world." The trio camped with the Malagasy Scouts, joining sessions on the importance of clean water, good sanitation and hygiene, and helping to build facilities at the camp.
Mystery surrounds the disappearance of a schoolgirl from Enfield who has been missing with 2 friends for more than 2 weeks. Miriam Mohammed, 17, was last seen on Sunday, April 24th, the day she vanished, with fellow school pals Ikra Jal, 17, from Tottenham, and Alwiya Hassan Nureni, also 17. Police have launched an appeal for public help to find the whereabouts of the 3 teenagers. Officers have discounted the possibility that they may have been radicalised and travelled to Syria. They say they understand the girls had been planning to go away and believe they have spent the past fortnight in the Newport and Cardiff areas of South Wales. They may now be in the Camden area of London. The 3 are all students at Leighton Sixth Form College in Waltham Forest. Mariam was last seen by her mother at midday on April the 24th. She did not tell her mother where she was going. Ikra told her mother she was visiting Wood Green Library, and Alwiya told her mother she was going to Stratford in East London. Anyone who may have information or knows of their whereabouts is asked to call the police on 101.
Parents have launched a petition to stop the stupid and senseless closure of a nursery school. The preschool at Carterhatch Infant School in Bell Lane, Enfield Lock, has fallen on tough times and can no longer make ends meet. As a result, its 19 staff will be made redundant in July, and the 120 children on its books will have to find somewhere else to go come September. The online petition has 38 signatures so far, while their paper version gathered 50 names in the first 12 hours. Delroy Fraser of Ordnance Road, whose 3-year-old son Dexter goes to the school, said, "Where do we go now? This preschool provided a brilliant start in life for our children. It stops them being thrown in at the deep end at school. The timing of the announcement is particularly upsetting due to the fact that it's come way after the expiry date for us to apply to try and put our children in other school nurseries. It's been taken to save money, but can you not allow fee-paying children to attend, or why can you not part-fund the children that attend with the parents paying a small contribution? All the parents I've spoken to are in favour of this. This decision has, in our opinion, been steamrolled through." The school sent letters to parents on April the 28th, one day before children were allocated places for next term. There were concerns Carterhatch children would not be able to apply for places until October, but Enfield Council agreed to extend the deadline. Civil Kaya, whose son had just left the school after having attended since the age of 3 months, said he would have been totally unprepared for school without it. She said, "It's been very hard to get a place anyway, but it's going to be even more difficult now. Being Turkish, English is our second language, and we live in a tight community, so attending preschool allowed my son to learn English and integrate with other cultures, which is very important. School would have been very challenging if it were not for the preschool." Andrea Adamiu, whose 3-year-old daughter Elena goes to the school, added, It's such a shame. It's a good place with very committed, friendly staff. Balaji Akarairi of Brimstown has sent all 3 of her children there and called the closure stupid and senseless. She said, "It didn't have to get to this point. I love this place and would not think about sending my kids anywhere else. I have no problem paying fees in order to keep it open. It's unfair to move children around at such a crucial time in their lives. The entire process has been badly thought out, and now the time bomb has gone off." Council spokesman Andrew Golder said, "The decision to close Bell Lane Preschool was taken by Carterhatch Infant School, which runs the provision. Every child at the preschool is fully funded by the government. We appreciate this has caused considerable distress, and we're seeking to identify alternative provision nearby for every child currently attending the preschool. Enfield Council is extending the deadline for parents who missed the original deadline so they can apply for preschool places elsewhere in the borough. We're also opening a specialist preschool for children with special educational needs on the site, and will be writing to all parents affected by this closure." When contacted, Carterhatch referred the Enfield Independent to the council's response and refused to comment.
Passers-by can glance at artwork by school students as they pass under the Seven Sisters Railway Bridge on West Green Road. An open-air art space will exhibit a selected portfolio of work from young artists at Parkview School, located next to Downhills Park in the West Green area of Haringey. Each piece will be displayed for a month before rotating to the next artwork in a large picture frame under the bridge. The idea behind showing artwork in a public space began as part of a project called Frame, which was set up by artist and Parkview art teacher Alexander Costello. He felt it was important to give students at the school a real artist-in-residence experience and developed the concept of showcasing work through the provision of a public platform and exhibition space that recognises and appreciates the value and quality of artwork created in the classroom. The long-term aim of Frame is to expand the space it already occupies into bigger areas and reach as many people as possible in order to develop and showcase student projects in a unique way and eventually inspire other schools in Haringey and beyond to do the same. From there, the school is hoping to start workshops with local and international artists and exchange with universities. The exhibition opened on Wednesday, April 27th, with a visit from the Mayor of Haringey and showcased the artwork of student Eleanor Antonova. Eleanor said, "It was so exciting to see my work up in public. It's a pleasure for me to be one of the chosen students to have my work exhibited. It was so nice to see other students there and to have their support." Sounds a lovely idea to me.
A woman has been awarded £12,000 after a dentist allegedly failed to diagnose an infection in 2 of her teeth. Kaya Williams, 35, from Enfield, was treated in 2014 at a dentist's in Norfolk, where she was living at the time. It was alleged the dentist, Dr. Leon Minnie, examined her, but failed to diagnose and treat infection in one tooth and performed the wrong treatment on another. Miss Williams settled out of court for £12,000 and said the whole thing had been a terrible experience. She said, "I never knew I could experience pain like I felt when my tooth was infected. I was unable to function. It was like it was going to fall out at any moment. I kept returning to the dentist to see what was happening, and when I was told I'd have to have my tooth out, I was mortified. Imagine being a normal, happy, bubbly person who laughs and smiles all the time, to suddenly going into myself. I lost all my confidence. I felt really embarrassed. I work in Canary Wharf, and everyone's very smart and well turned out, as I have always been. But having a massive space where you used to have a tooth really knocks you. I stopped being myself, and it has taken a long time to come to terms with this. Miss Williams said, although she was angry and had lost confidence in dentists, she was looking forward to getting her teeth fixed and moving on with her life. Despite paying out £12,000, Townsend House Dental Surgery did not admit liability for its actions.
Labour has swept to victory in the London elections in Enfield and Haringey with a record number of votes. Joanne McCartney won a seat at the Greater London Authority for the fourth time with 91,215 votes, a 17,000 increase on her winning 2012 total, and over 50,000 more than second-place Conservative Linda Kelly. Speaking exclusively to the Enfield Independent, Ms McCartney said the victory felt great. She said, "I'm delighted that the people have put their trust in me again, and I will carry that trust into City Hall, working with a Labour mayor." With the negativity of the Zac Goldsmith campaign, people became more and more inclined to vote for me, which can be seen in the result, but we took nothing for granted. In contrast, locally the campaign has been carried out excellently, with my fellow candidates ensuring there was a very good feeling and a fair contest. Ms McCartney was first elected back in 2004. The massive increase for Labour was also seen in the mayoral vote, where Labour's Sadiq Khan got 88,073, almost double Zac Goldsmith's 44,147. It was even worse for Mr Goldsmith in the second preference votes, where he came fifth, behind Sophie Walker of the Women's Equality Party. And here's my go at being the returns officer for the night, so here are the election results in full. For the Greater London Authority, Joanne McCartney, Labour, 91,215. Linda Kelly, Conservative, 39,924. Ronald Stewart, Green, 15,409. Nick DaCosta, Liberal Democrats, 12,038. Neville Watson, UKIP, 9,042. Godwin Azu, All People's Party, 1,172. And the results for the mayoral election from the first preference votes. Sadiq Khan, Labour, 88,073. Zac Goldsmith, Conservative, 45,147. Sian Berry, Green, 11,102. Caroline Pidgeon, Liberal Democrats, 7,152. Peter Whittle, UKIP, 4,375. Sophie Walker, Women's Equality, 3,911. George Galloway, Respect, 2,121. Paul Golding, Britain First, 1,620. Lee Harris, Cannabis is Safer Than Alcohol, 1,445. David Furness, BNP, 770. Prince Zelensky, Independent, 758. Ankit Love, One Love, 259.
A supermarket which caused issues with antisocial behaviour has been banned from selling alcohol. Enfield Council revoked the licence of Euro Express in Chaseside, Enfield, after an investigation. Licensing enforcement officers seized 192 packets of cigarettes, 89 packets of hand-rolling tobacco, and 9 bottles of vodka that were illegally imported into the country following a test purchase in February. They also found the owner had repeatedly been selling alcohol illegally after 11 p.m, despite frequent warnings not to. Council Member for Environment, Councillor Daniel Anderson, said, "Though we're reluctant to remove a premises licence, in this case the owners and managers really didn't give us any choice, simply because they repeatedly broke the law." Not only were there issues with antisocial behaviour, but this shop was selling tobacco and alcohol it had not paid the proper duty on, which gave them an unfair advantage over other businesses.
2 Enfield libraries were closed on Monday to allow extensive refurbishments to begin. Ponders End Library is being remodelled to allow Age UK Enfield to have its headquarters in part of the College Court building in High Street, Ponders End. The building will be closed until May the 23rd, while work to upgrade facilities for the charity takes place. Enfield Highway Library will also be closed until August, while a public health service department is put in. The changes are part of plans by the council to raise money by allowing other businesses and organisations to share library space and pay part of the leases after facing government cuts. The 4 biggest libraries, Enfield Town, Edmonton Green, Palmer's Green and Ordnance Unity Library, will continue to provide regular library services along with community events. The other 13 will be run by the council, but facilities will be shared with other organisations to help save money.
A clampdown on prostitution has been launched after complaints from residents about antisocial behaviour in Edmonton. Police, the Immigration Service and Enfield Council want to stop people soliciting for sex in 4 Street, Edmonton, with many of the workers in the area coming from Eastern Europe and arriving from outside the borough. Council Cabinet Member for Community Organisations and Culture, Councillor Yasmin Brett, said police patrols would focus on the area and known brothels would be targeted. She encouraged people to report their suspicions to the police. She also said they would make contact with women working in the sex trade in the area to ensure that they had access to appropriate sexual health services and opportunities to leave prostitution. Councillor Brett said, "This is absolutely unacceptable and we have listened to residents' concerns and will be taking swift and decisive action with the police to ensure we tackle this problem promptly. We need to tackle the antisocial behaviour, but also get these women out of the sex trade and into safer occupations so that both they and our streets are safer. To report issues regarding prostitution, call the police on 101 or the Council's antisocial behaviour line on 020 8379 4612.
Traffic chaos hit Enfield at the weekend after 2 accidents on one of the borough's busiest roads. At 6:53 p.m. on Sunday, Enfield Police tweeted that the A10 Great Cambridge Road had been closed northbound from Berry Street after a serious collision between a car and a pedestrian. Minutes later, another tweet said there were severe delays southbound after an incident involving a car and a motorbike near Carterhatch Lane. The northbound route eventually reopened at around 8:30 p.m, with the southbound road following soon after. People took to social media amid the chaos, with traffic having to be diverted. Carol Speed wrote on Facebook, "Traffic coming off the A10 and up Trinity Avenue. On arriving at the Bush Hill Park station end of the road, the drivers are lost and confused." There were also reports of people trying to divert down Carterhatch Lane, causing further jams. There have been no reports of any arrests or updates on any injuries.
Before we go on, there's just time to mention that our title music is Country Rock Polka, composed by Pat Prilly, Fernand Bouillon and Harry Breur. It's performed by Jean-Jacques Perret, who's kindly given his permission for us to use it. And now here's Elizabeth with the first item of sport.
This is rugby. Versatile back Jack Bates has scooped the Enfield Ignition's Player of the Season award after impressing at centre and fly half. The team's man of the match in the 22-22 draw with the playoff contenders Hammersmith and Fulham, he also proved very effective in the return legs with Woodford. Old haberdashers and old merchant tailors, especially with the boot. A regular in the side, Bates played 21 games in all competitions and ended the campaign with an 87-point haul, which included 3 tries. Other winners at first team level were Matt Georgiou, the most improved, and Liam Horn, top trainer. Georgiou was one of the youngest players in the side at 17, and he enjoyed a memorable first season at senior level with the terrier-like young flanker, the author of some excellent carries. Liam Horne also enjoyed a productive campaign, a towering presence in the line-out and very adept at poaching opposition ball. He has certainly developed into one of the most effective players in his position at London 2 North West level.
And now table tennis. Enfield's Denise Payet bagged gold and silver medals at the Cadet and Junior Table Tennis National Championships. The top seed and defending champion retained her cadet girls singles title, making up for her disappointment in the older age group junior event, when she was eliminated in the group stage. She had to dig in to get the better of second seed Charlotte Bardsley, 4-2, in a competitive match characterised by some long rallies. The silver came in the junior girls doubles, when Payet and partner Kate Cheer faced top seeds Tintin Ho and Emily Bolton in the final. It was a tough task as their opponents were crowned silver medalists at the Italian Youth Open earlier this year. As it proved to be a one-sided match, as Ho and Bolton powered to a 3-0 triumph.
And now for some cricket. Northampton Exiles slumped to a disappointing 5-wicket defeat against Hemel Hempstead in their opening match in Division 4B of the Saracens Hertfordshire County Cricket League. Having been put in to bat, Mike Bullard, 14, and Amit Naik, 11, got the Exiles off to a solid start with an opening stand of 30, but a flurry of wickets left them struggling at 42 for 4. Sean Lawler, 26, provided staunch resistance, but Hemel kept on chipping away with the ball, with skipper Anjam Khan taking 4 for 24, as the Exiles were dismissed for a below-par 148. Yagnash Patel struck an early blow with the ball when Hemel replied, but the Exiles were partially the architects of their downfall, as they gave away 41 extras and also dropped top scorer Andy Turbot, 42, before he had got off the mark. And Hemel took full advantage of their good fortune as they eased to 150 to 5 with the best part of 7 overs to spare. Northampton Exiles go to St Albans 2 on Saturday. Meanwhile, Exiles 2 suffered a 9-wicket defeat at the hands of Hemel Hempstead 3, despite 94 from Steve Plum, but Newton Shah took 5 wickets as Exiles 3 overcame Preston 4 by 75 runs.
Football. 10-man Enfield Town were left to rue a number of missed chances as they were beaten 2-0 by Northwood in the Middlesex Senior Cup final on Saturday. Town played the entire second half a man light after striker Corey Whiteley was shown a straight red card for an uncharacteristic late challenge on Andy Lomas, which gave referee Daniel Richardson little option but to send him off. His dismissal came 4 minutes before half-time, and Northwood, who finished 7th in the Eberstick Southern Central Division this term, soon made their numerical advantage count in the final at Uxbridge as the Towners came up short in their in their final game of a long season. Their response was almost instant, with George Nicholas's header at the far post opening the scoring before Enfield had time to adjust to their reduction in numbers following the sending off. But Bradley Quinton's side reshuffled during the interval. Samuel Bimutin replaced Stan Muguo, and player boss Quinton dropped back into the back line as Taylor Campbell was released from his wing-back duties to midfield, where he prospered. The 10 men remained more than competitive throughout, and they were very much still in the contest, and with a shout until Northwood I'll read that again. The 10 men remained more than competitive throughout, and they were very much still in the contest and in with a shout, until Northwood doubled their lead 2 minutes from time, when Nico Muir breached their back line again, firing in from just outside the penalty area to put the outcome beyond doubt. It was tough on Enfield, who'd scored 18 goals in their 3 previous rounds of the Senior Cup. But their shooting boots deserted them when it mattered in the final, as they made most of the early running while it was still 11-aside. It was always going to be tough for them, though, as 4 of their players, Mark Kirby, Billy Crook, Alfred Mugabe and Imed Kartita, were all ineligible for Saturday's final. But Towners had their chances. Bobby Devine and Claudio Vilcu shot over when well placed, while Tyler Campbell shot into the side netting, and Harry Ottaway's deflected effort landed on the roof of the net as they went close. Mickey Parcel then had a good header just over before Campbell had a low drive saved, and then Vilcu fired wide when well placed. But it was not to be their day, and Town had to look on while Northwood enjoyed their celebrations as their campaign finished on a high. It means Quinton's side will regroup after the summer break as they look to push for promotion again next season in the Ryman Premier Division, after narrowly missing out on the playoffs.
An Enfield student could be on course for selection by Team GB for the Rio Olympic Games after cruising to a comfortable victory in an intra-university athletics meeting. Jajinder Uja, 22, of Ponders End, is a second-year student of sports science at Middlesex University, and last weekend he set a new British universities and colleges sport 100 metres record in Bedford with a win in the final in a time of 10.32 seconds. He grew up in Brimsdown, and when he was studying for GCSEs at Bishop Stopford School in Brick Lane, Enfield, at the age of 16, he set a new school's record for the 100 metres of 11 seconds. It would be wonderful if he was selected, I think.
An Enfield dance group has won the first major competition it competed in. The E-Nights Troops group, Underrated, won first prize in a competition held in Canterbury. The team of Asia Bright, 13, and sisters Drew and Demi Poole, who were 11 and 10, and Rihanna Dengel, also 13, performed a street dance routine, impressing judges and Britain's Got Talent veterans Poppin Ron and Michael of boy band Rihanna. Rihanna, a pupil at Kingsmead School, said, "We were shocked, as this was only our first dance." The E-Nights is a street dance group supported by the Enfield Women's Centre.
People are being urged to don fancy dress and take part in a charity hike organised by Enfield Council. The Enfield Night Hike 2016, in aid of the Nightingale Cancer Support Centre, will take place on May the 20th. The theme for this year's 15-kilometre walk is colour, with the Council's Everybody Active team providing white T-shirts and fabric pens for walkers to design their own outfits, and outlandish wigs, clothes and make-up are also encouraged. Cabinet Member for Public Health and Sport, Councillor Neka Kizar, said, "I'd urge people to get dressed up and get out on the route to help us raise lots of money for this fantastic cause. Entrance must be over 14 and the entry fee is £15. To enter, go to www.nightingalessupport.org.uk or call 0208 366 9674. That's 0208 366 9674.
The owner of a park cafe, who is retired, says she'll miss her customers hugely, but not the hard work. After the Town Park Cafe in Enfield Town was put up for bids by Enfield Council, current owner Julie Derrick decided to pass on the responsibility after 7 years at the helm. It will be taken over by Ozgur Salebi, who is planning an extensive rebuilding job, including a new kitchen, more inside seating, and a soft play area. Ms. Derrick, 55, of Berry Street West, Enfield, said, "I'm happy to be going. I didn't want to go through with the huge redevelopments needed. It's all been amicable. Osgur has lovely plans for the building, which will benefit everyone, especially mothers who walk here with young children who can use the soft play. It needs revamping and money spending on it, and I'm happy to be going into retirement. It's very hard work running a cafe. I will not miss that, but I will miss the people hugely. The support, loyalty and kindness has been incredible. I never knew anyone before I started here. Now I know absolutely everybody." The plans are set to take between 1 and 3 months to build, I imagine that is, subject to being granted planning permission by the council. When it's being refurbished, the cafe building will shut, but will keep trading from a van outside, meaning the thousands of park visitors over the summer months will still have the option to buy food and drink. Ms. Derrick's sister-in-law, Jackie, works part-time at the cafe and will continue her job under the new owner to provide a familiar face. She said, "It's sad, an end of an era, but you have to embrace change and it's time to move on. It's a big venture, but long overdue. The park needs a cafe fit for purpose. The new owner, Mr. Celebi, comes to the town park with experience as he runs cafes at Trent Park and Whiteweb's Golf Club. He said, "I'm excited. I want to do a good service for the lovely people of this community, and they deserve a bigger and better place." What you might not know is that the cafe site used to be occupied by the bowling club, who actually occupied most of the premises. And then when the parking area was taken over by the housing development, which is on the northern boundary of the park, the bowling club people didn't have anywhere to park, found it too far to come from the parking facilities that were enabled, and that was the end of the bowling club. So that's released a lot of space for the cafe, so you lose some and you win some. And I think you'll be able to eat outside in the bowling green area in the summer. But I think that's part of the plan, but we'll see what happens.
Sounds very nice. Smoking among Enfield Turkish community is 3 times higher than the national average, according to research dubbed very worrying. Young people with a Turkish background take up smoking earlier than the Enfield average, smoke more and are more likely to smoke alternative forms of tobacco. This is in contrast to the borough as a whole, where just over 13% of adults now smoke. A spokeswoman for Enfield Council said that even more worrying were some of the myths uncovered about shisha tobacco, with some believing that it was not tobacco and not realising that shisha smoking had been estimated as being the equivalent of smoking 20 cigarettes. To help combat the problem, the council is running a conference on Saturday, May the 21st, to highlight the dangers of smoking and tobacco use and to support the Turkish community to quit. Dr. Mick Ozer, consultant cardiologist at the Middlesex University Hospital in Stirling Way, Edmonton, will start the workshop by talking about the dangers of smoking. He said, "Unfortunately, for a long time, tobacco was part of Turkish culture, and even though fewer people are smoking in Turkey, this fall has not been seen in the UK. Working in North Middlesex Hospital, I see the damage that it causes. Heart disease, breathing difficulties, Alzheimer's, cancer. These are serious health problems and cut lives short." Smoking advisor Ufujini will talk about what is already happening in the borough to help people quit. There will be time for people taking part in the workshop to discuss how to increase work to stop people from starting to smoke and how they can stop and how to support others. Noka Kirza, the council's cabinet member for public health and sports, said fewer and fewer people are smoking, both nationally and particularly in Enfield. Where people do smoke, it causes serious harm both to the smoker and to those around them, and I'm therefore very pleased that work in Enfield to reduce prevalence has been successful. This conference will build on that success with the Turkish community where progress to date has not been so rapid. The conference is at the Kirkis Community Centre in Derby Road, Ponders End, from 4 o'clock until 6 o'clock in the afternoon.
A mother fears for the health of her 3 children as they're forced to live in a damp and mice-infested house in Enfield. Monique Cousley moved into the property in Lytton Avenue in 2013 with her children, now aged 12, 4 and 3, as temporary sheltered accommodation organised by Enfield Council and owned by private rent agency RHP Services. However, the house has fallen into disrepair with rotten floorboards, damp on the walls and vermin in the kitchen. Council bosses said they're trying to rectify the problems, but Miss Cousley, 31, said, "The mice bite our clothes, eat our food and poo everywhere. We've called the council and the agency and no one has done anything. I'm so scared of the mice. My kids and I can barely sleep in our beds, worrying about being bitten. We cannot live like this. It's dangerous." Miss Cousley also had to go to her GP after she developed a rash caused by the unclean conditions in the house, and the doctor wrote to the council demanding the family was moved as soon as possible. Spokesperson Andrew Golder said council inspectors had examined the house in January this year and were urging RHP to help Miss Cousley and her family. He said, "We have the greatest of sympathy for Miss Cousley and her family and are actively trying to resolve the problems she is facing." When the family moved in, the property was in a good state of repair and met the family's needs. In January, a number of issues were identified in the property which required repairs, and Miss Cousley has reported them to the managing agent, who is responsible for maintaining the property in a proper state. When the agent did not rectify the faults identified, she notified the council, who took up the case on her behalf and instructed the agent to carry out the required work, which has still not been done. Because of the issues the family is facing, the managing agent offered the family alternative accommodation elsewhere in London, which she declined. Council officers are also working with the family to find another home to move to as soon as one becomes available. RHP has not responded to a request for comment.
A sniffer dog detected thousands of illicit cigarettes stashed behind 2 fake walls and a locked metal door during a swoop by licensing enforcement officers. Enfield Food Store in Hertford Road, Ponders End, has had its licence revoked following one of the biggest seizures of tobacco ever made from an off-licence in Enfield. The latest revocation is the 3rd time that the premises has lost its licence. Officers first visited the premises in October last year and found 9 packets of non-duty paid hand-rolling tobacco and 40 packets of cigarettes hidden under a butcher's chopping board. They also found that 13 licence conditions have been breached. The owner was issued with a warning letter 2 weeks later, and a voluntary declaration was signed by the premises licence holder confirming he had carried out checks and no non-duty paid products remained. But last November, customs officers seized 74 bottles of non-duty paid bitter, and on December the 21st, licensing enforcement officers found more than 4,500 packets of non-duty paid cigarettes and 35 packets of hand-rolling tobacco stashed behind 2 fake walls and a locked metal door of the toilets. Daniel Anderson, Enfield Council's Cabinet Member for the Environment, said, "The last seizure alone, accounting for just cigarettes and alcohol, amounted to a staggering £24,244 and 37 pence in tax evasion." This was tax evasion on an industrial scale. The lengths that the premises owners went to conceal this tobacco shows that they knew what they were doing was illegal. The premises owners repeatedly showed a flagrant disregard for the law and actively worked to undermine our efforts to license premises in the borough. I understand that under the previous licence holder, tobacco was concealed in a chest of drawers with false bottoms. The time and effort that must have gone into building the various storage containers in which items have been concealed shows that this is obviously a large-scale operation, taken very seriously.
As the sun hammered the tarmac outside polling stations across in Barnet, the local authority felt the heat as thousands of voters seemed to mysteriously disappear from the electoral register. By 10 o'clock on Thursday morning, Barnet was trending on Twitter as stories of scores of people turned away from polling stations started to emerge across social media. Voters were turning up at certain polling stations across the borough, only to be turned away because polling stations had the wrong or incomplete voter register lists. Although it's not necessary to bring your polling card with you to vote, residents were told that the only way they could place their ballot would be if they returned with their card, or if they could return in the evening, by which time the local authority assured people the problem would be rectified. It was chaos, Green Party activist Ben Samuel said. Mr. Samuel, 29, had arrived at the Hoop Lane polling station in Edward the Confessor Church when the polls opened at 7 o'clock in the morning, only to be met with a bank of polling station volunteers on all on phones to Barnet Council, because scores of early voters could not be found on any electoral register. I came back with my polling card and was able to vote, but my neighbour had to go to work right away. He was furious that he will now have to come back tonight. But as one voter who did not want to be named told the press, what about those people who just won't come back tonight? How many people will have effectively lost their vote? The morning's chaos had settled by the time the press arrived on the scene after 11 o'clock on Thursday morning. At Underhill Primary School in Maze Lane in Barnet, voters were also being asked to cast their votes for the council by-election for the ward of Underhill. But the two volunteers outside the polling station told the press that only 2 voters had been turned away from the voting that morning, and the steady stream of voters flowing into the polling station were all able to complete their vote without problem. David Longstaff said that the mistakes in getting the right information out to polling stations constituted a very serious problem with administration, and somebody is going to have to come forward and explain to people how this happened. His fellow volunteer, Margaret Dixon, who was gathering polling card numbers outside the polling station, said that she'd spoken to one woman who had not been able to vote, and that a second woman had been turned away, but was allowed to vote when she returned with her polling card. And just an update on that story, my understanding is that the Chief Executive of Barnet Council has actually tendered his resignation as a result of this debacle.
A group of 300 Enfield parents has to be registered as an official charity. Started by 2 parents 6 years ago, Enfield Parent Engagement Panel, PEP, will be able to raise money more easily and provide better help and more services to families in the borough. PEP advises parents on local services, on how to support and represent their community, and on how to give children the best possible start in life. 80 trained parent champions visit schools, give talks to young people and meet teachers on how to best help people. Enfield's departing mayor, Councillor Patricia, recently invited 30 parents to a reception at the Enfield Civic Centre to celebrate their work. She said, as a PEP member myself, I'm so proud to be involved. The PEP was originally developed by Enfield Council as a self-help group of volunteers keen to be trained in order to support other parents and children. It's grown into a magnificent organisation where parents are seizing the opportunities that it offers. Councillor Alfa Orhan, Cabinet Member for Education, Children's Services and Protection, said, the PEP fulfils our aim to build strong communities and is a great example of what can be achieved by volunteers.
Comedian and actor Bobby Davro is heading to the Millfield Theatre for a one night only on Thursday, May the 19th, to share tales from a television career that has spanned more than 30 years. The impressionist made his debut on the small screen in 1981, but his breakthrough came after an appearance in Live at Her Majesty's in 1983. He appeared on a variety of different television shows throughout the next decade, including his first show named Copycats, which was a quick-fire sketch show where guests did impressions with only a certain amount of time. His popularity peaked in the mid-80s while hosting his own Saturday night series for ITV. Then in 1997, he hosted Yorkshire Television's Winner Takes It All for 65 programmes. He's performed on hundreds of other entertainment shows over the years. Also appeared later as Vinnie Monks on EastEnders during 2007 and 2008, and a number of reality shows, including Dancing on Ice, Big Brother and Come Dine With Me. Away from the stage, Bobby enjoys spending his time playing golf, indulging in a spot of fishing, and relaxing with a glass of Chardonnay in front of the telly. However, he feels most comfortable when he's performing on the live stage, and he regularly tours in pantomimes around the country. So Bobby Davro is at the Millfield Theatre, Silver Street, Edmonton, on the 19th of May at 7:45 p.m. You can get details by phoning 020 8807 6680.
A teenager is using her experience of living with type 1 diabetes to campaign to raise awareness about the little understood condition. Ellie Huckle, 18, of Bushhill Park, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when she was 11 years old. Unlike type 2 diabetes, which hits the headlines more often due to its association with diet and lifestyle, Ellie's condition is an autoimmune disease where the body's immune system attacks and destroys the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas. Insulin regulates blood sugar in the body, meaning that sufferers like Ellie have to learn to inject themselves with synthetic insulin so that their blood sugar doesn't get too low or too high. Ellie told the Advertiser, "There is a lot of stigma around the disease because of the associations people have with type 2 diabetes. People think maybe it's the same thing. But people with type 1 diabetes are born with this condition. It affects mostly young people, and it can be difficult for young people to combat negative attitudes about it." She explained that when she was diagnosed at just 11 years old, it was daunting. It was daunting because from the minute you're diagnosed, you depend on insulin injections and have to keep a really close eye on your blood sugar levels all the time, she said. In order to promote understanding around the condition, Ellie started a blog in 2013 to share daily victories, setbacks and developments with other young people. The blog has now been viewed more than 72,000 times, and it has sparked a love of social media that she is hoping to build on in her future career working within the media industry.
A cyclist is fighting for his life following a collision with a tippet van on the North Circular Road. Detectives are appealing for witnesses to the collision that happened at 11:30 a.m. on Sunday on the westbound carriage of the A406 Bowes Road near the junction with Brownlow Road. The cyclist, a 28-year-old man, was taken to an East London hospital and his injuries are described as life-threatening. The driver of the van stopped at the scene and helped police with their inquiries. He was not arrested. Detectives from the Serious Collision Unit are investigating. Anyone with information or who witnessed the collision is being asked to call 020 8597 4874. Okay, I said that before the end of our recording today, we'd give you the information about the annual general meeting of the Enfield Talking newspaper, and we'd really like you to come. Listeners, volunteers and supporters are invited to attend the annual general meeting of Enfield Talking newspaper, which will include a talk by Charles Carroll, who's a journalist, presenter and Radio 4 newsreader. Now, the date is on Wednesday the 8th of June 2016 at 7:30 p.m. That's Wednesday the 8th of June 2016 at 7:30 p.m. And it's going to be held at a different location. It's going to be at the Parish Centre, St Andrew's Church, Enfield Town, EN1 3EG. Now, we're going to read out the agenda, but first, Elizabeth is going to say something about the guest speaker.
Just before I say that, all these exciting things are happening, but also refreshments are going to be served,
Ooh.
which might be rather nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, about the speaker, Charles Carroll. It's rather exciting having a speaker, I think. We don't usually have one, so I'm looking forward to it myself. Anyway, Charles Carroll was brought up in a household where the radios were adjusted to Radio 4, and then the tuning knobs were ripped off. So the station was a constant background sound during his formative years. So it was that he was unversed in popular music because he was listening to Radio 4 all the time. But he was something of an expert on growing roses, cooking, and the best theme tune for the PM programme. He made his way from hospital radio to BBC local radio, to British Forces Radio, to the BBC World Service, and finally to the doors of Broadcasting House itself. Charles will talk to us about his varied career and provide our readers with some tricks of the trade. So I do hope that you will come and listen to Charles Carroll.
And now this is the agenda for the AGM of Enfield Talking Newspaper on Wednesday the 8th of June 2016 at 7:30. Item 1, welcome. 2, apologies for absence. 3, presentation by Charles Carroll, followed by Q&A. 4, minutes of the AGM held on the 30th of June 2015. 5, matters arising, excluding items elsewhere in the agenda. 6, Chairman's report by Phillip Dawson. 7, Treasurer's report by Robin Bester. 8, a discussion of these two previous items, 6 and 7. 9, editing and reading team report by Phillip Dawson. 10, listener's representative report by Diane de Jersey. 11, production team report by Phillip Dawson. 12, Enfield microphone report by Keith de Jersey. 13, election of the management committee. 14, any other business. Now, Katherin will read out next the list of those who served on the management committee during the past year, and then you may need to know there are vacancies on the committee. We need a maximum of 10 elected members and 2 listeners' representatives. We currently have 7 elected members and 1 listeners' representative. And after Katherine's given those details, Malcolm will let you know how to get details if you want to make nominations for any of those posts. So over to Katherin.
And here we have it. The president is Patricia Albert. The vice presidents are Peter Sykes and June Hugh. And just to let you know, the president and vice presidents are ex officio members of the management committee until their retirement. No ex officio members of the committee have retired during the year. The committee, therefore, is Robin Bester, the treasurer, Phillip Dawson, the chairman, Cassandra Marshall, secretary, Diane de Jersey, vice chair and listeners' representative, Keith de Jersey, Pat Harris, who resigned during the year, Audrey Jenkins, Jean Sorey, who passed away during the year, Ian Bishop-Laggett, and Peter Edwards. And that is for our AGM on Wednesday the 8th of June at 7:30 p.m. And as if all that wasn't enough to whet your appetite, let me just say, as one of the organisers of them, the refreshments are going to be very tasty indeed.
Don't forget, that's at St Andrew's Parish Centre, which is in the main hall, Silver Street, Enfield, which I think is a new location. Now, we've mentioned that you may want to nominate people, and we've thought about it. We've sat around the table discussing it and think that probably the best thing for you to do to get guidance on doing this is to contact your reader's representative, who is Diane de Jersey, and you can reach her on 020 8805 6578. And it would also be a good idea to speak to her if you need transport, because we're not sure whether we're going to have enough people who need transport to hire a vehicle just to do that, or whether it would be better to help people out with taxis and things like that. So there's no reason why you can't come. We can come and pick you up one way or another. Contact Diane de Jersey about it, and the powers that be will sort it all out for you. Okay, now that brings us to the end of our programme for this week, our first digital programme. So please remember to turn over the address label in your postal packet, put the memory stick into the packet, and return it to us as soon as possible in readiness for the next edition. And the Enfield Talking newspaper will be with you again in 1 week's time. Thanks for being with us. From me, Malcolm, Elizabeth, Katherin, Patricia, and Jason, and Ian, who's been doing wonderful technical things in the background. Goodbye.
Bye.